Some things are better left unsaid. Take it from me, some things are better left unsaid.
Hello and welcome to the second episode of Unspoken. I'm Joshua Heeley, and that's my brother Jonathan Heeley. And today we're going to chat about immigration, refugees, and people moving to other countries.
It's funny, I actually haven't spoken too much about this, and I guess one of the reasons why we are doing it is because it's unspoken. And so, looking excited about this topic.
Yes, it is. It's one of those many that we will be touching on that people, as you say, don't speak about because it's difficult. Everybody's got their opinions. You have those that like to think open all borders, that the world should not have any borders, and anybody can go freely from place to place. And others say no. We've worked hard to build what we've built, and don't take it. We said last time we chatted in the last episode that you've actually been to many countries. Why don't you tell us about that and your experiences about that?
Yeah, I'm privileged to lived in South Africa, my childhood life, and then I have lived for 5 months or more in a few different countries. I say 5 months because France was the shortest period of time that I was in France. And I've been also in England, living there for 2.5 years or so, Scotland, 2.5 years. I've been in America for 3 years or so, in the Midwest, because America is quite big. So the Midwest is different, perhaps. And then also, I'm currently in New Zealand, as I think we discussed last time. And so, yeah, I've been a part of different cultures and felt as a foreigner or invited in different ways. And there's different, the different cultures can accept people easier and you can get friends in some of the other cultures faster, but not as deep. And yeah, I definitely have experienced quite a range of being the one coming into the country. Yeah.
Have you ever felt unwanted or looked down on in any country, or or specifically more than another one, or do you felt like you had to justify what you're doing there, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think the biggest move when I moved to the UK, I left South Africa, and it was strange for me to be have less footing or less support than I was used to. And it was a very, I think it's quite cold in some aspects in the UK, my experience, meaning I didn't have to prove myself, but I also didn't feel welcomed or supported of, yeah, no worries, I'll come and I'll do anything for you type thing. And I'm not saying that it has to be the case, but it was more me on my lonesome in Europe. It felt, I mean, you were there. I was thankful that I could, start off in your house and have a holiday and experience your area. But then, yeah, I kind of just felt I was by myself, or um, needed to work out the world by myself a lot more than perhaps some of the other places that I've been to.
Mm.
America was welcoming, and felt kind of like I wasn't pushed away in my surroundings, but I wasn't really able to go too fast into deeper relationships as I felt like in South Africa do, and I could be biased with that. It could be, um, could be because it was my home area. I just feel like sometimes in different cultures they're happy to to chat over coffee and chat about life, but then when you want to share the deeper things, things that kind of match to each other, it's sometimes a struggle. France, I was only there for a short time, and my environment was more of the ski season. Um, but having a different language was a bit of a struggle. Definitely, my experience has mostly been in the English-speaking countries, and so I can't speak to going into a country where too much that you don't understand the language, because that's very hard. Yeah. How have you? I mean, you've been in a few countries. You've lived in Scotland and England yourself, and raised in South Africa. How did you experience the welcome, or the when you left?
Yeah, yeah, it was very, very similar to what you have, but I don't know if it was because of me or my, me struggling to fit in or make friends as much as the culture or the people that I'm around. But I did. I mean, I landed in Scotland for 11 years ago, and I was actually working with a South African, so it made it a lot easier. And he was there for already 8 years, so it was very, I kind of fit in almost immediately. He had friends that knew you're South African and happy with that. The guy whose job I took over, or we swapped, he was South African, so it was kind of like people were very happy to have me around. They were like, "Oh, another South African." So the people that were there before me really paved a nice way and really were good people. And the Scottish they in my area were very, very happy to have another South African, and they were like, "Oh yeah," so they immediately embraced it. I made good friends. Not, I wouldn't. Well, yeah, I suppose some sense quite deep friends. There were a few that I'm still friends with.
South African friends, deep friends,
No,
or the
no,
Scottish?
Scottish. Yes, and I really, I didn't feel like I had to justify being in the country, really. Where when I moved to England, I felt very non-English. And when people ask you, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm South African, but my dad's English. I am second generation English. I sometimes joke saying, I'm the only person in my family tree of, ever that was born in South Africa. In our family tree, it's all, as far as I went and I did the research up to the 1600s, and it's all English, 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 almost to justify I'm allowed to be here. I am English, just because I speak foreign. And there's always a sense of you that you are foreign. But I have tried to fit in. Not consciously, but you do. I mean, I'm watching more football, and you're playing a bit more cricket than I do. You do tend. You in England, so I'm being English to an extent.
There's a funny thing that you bring up there. I'm currently in New Zealand, and there's a decent amount of English, and there's a decent amount of people from England, and people from South Africa. And you said in Scotland that you had South African friends or people who knew about the South African group of people. And I think actually that makes quite a big difference of how the country that you're in perceives you. So in New Zealand, I feel like South Africans are looked at as hardworking, and will get some jobs done and are generally welcome. There's quite a lot of South Africans here now, who definitely all their children are born in New Zealand now. But over 20 or 30 years, it's been slowly getting more and more. And they, I think, are not as against South Africans coming in because of the history of the people that have come in have worked hard and have done that. And so you said in Scotland, they're like, "Oh no, great to have another South African here." But I think maybe in countries, maybe in England, or maybe in other places, or different nationalities, where your people go that laid the foundation before you, lay a certain lay. That's how it is. So I like that point of when you do go to a different country, of trying to connect and trying to adapt to their culture, remembering that it's not just yourself, it's not just your family. It might be there's 100 people coming after you.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's you know, from the very little bit that I've seen of New Zealand when I was there for a few days, but it didn't feel. It felt like, you know, the South Africans in the area in there, the friends that I have there knew that you, as you said, you're fitting in with the New Zealand culture, because it is, in a way, it's very similar culture. You know, it's the barbecues and the rugby and the outdoor culture. So it's possibly easier to fit in. English speaking, so it's just easier to do that. I mean, it must be a lot harder. Obviously, we can't speak for other people, but I'd love to hear from people watching this that first language is not English, possibly, and, you know, they moved to an English country. Is it how do they find having to speak more English than to be English, because, or be a New Zealander or an American or wherever they've gone, and if they don't speak English the first language, do they find it harder? That'd be quite interesting.
Well, I've had some when I was in America. I had some a Spanish friend who I'll not only be friends with for the rest of my life, called Timo, and he sometimes would get stuck on. His English was totally good. He was Spanish, and then his main one, and he just would stop and struggle to think of a phrase or a concept in English. So he knew exactly how he wanted to say, but sometimes people wouldn't understand his phrasing or his thing. And I think, and he's certainly fine and stuff. It's just an example of the way that you think it's not just speaking it out, speaking the language. It's a how people look at the world. It's like, you know, using a type of phrase that we speak Afrikaans, and you can one that our two wives interacted with recently is holding thumbs for you, whereas you keep your fingers crossed. And that's just like, it's just a different way of expressing yourself. That if you don't know the language or brought up in a different language, you don't have the same colloquialisms or expressions. One thing that has happened though in the biggest thing around in England is Brexit. Yes. It was voted in a few years ago and has managed to come to fruition after some struggles. Yes. Has there been immigration, or has there been some immediate effect that you've seen around you of people leaving, coming, trade routes? Have you found bananas not from Spain or something? Maybe that's racist. Sorry if that is.
Yeah, good question. No, I don't think the bananas are coming from Spain. There are some fruit and stuff coming from Spain. I think there's some grapes, actually, really nice ones. No, well, Brexit really threw a major spanner in the European Union's plans. It's a difficult one, because a lot of people immediately said that Brexit was a racial thing, and that everybody's racist voting for Brexit. And a lot of people were worried that, you know, if we out, then, you know, that the English wouldn't be able to go to Europe, and Europeans wouldn't be able to come to England, to the UK. There's even talk now of Scotland. A lot of people in Scotland are trying to break away from the United Kingdom now, because they want to actually be part of Europe rather. So there's a lot of animosity and a lot of division. I mean, it was a majority win. Yes, I mean, that's how you get something through, but it wasn't massive. It was 51 something % by 48.
50, I think it was 53.
Or somewhere, you know, it was very narrow. It was, well, narrow in the sense of massive decisions. You know, it wasn't a landslide, and it wasn't like the whole country wanted to be out or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of European people in England, and there always has been, I think, because we're so close. A lot of, at the moment, especially now with everything happening with COVID-19, is big emphasis on Europeans being in the NHS and helping out and saying, you voted against this, and now they're helping you. But I think from what people, from my understanding is why people voted Brexit was that they wanted to make their own rules and be almost sovereign in a way, or independent in their thinking and their lawmaking and the way they did things, and they felt or were told or believed, whatever the case is. There's many people have their different reasons for voting, but basically it was big. It's almost like stopping and holding hands with the people next to you. Because of that, the immediate reaction was that France have now said they won't stop any illegal immigrants from crossing the channel. I think it was from January they stopped. And there is a man over here, Nigel Farage, who basically headed up the Brexit, and he often goes out into the English Channel and films boatloads of these of immigrants coming over. These little speedboats, rubber ducks, and they just fill to the brim with people, and they're just coming across, and they just picked up, and he's quite upset about it, and he tends to upset a lot of people or rally them to say that they're all coming in and they're being put into all around. But basically, they're not being sent home; they being taken in and being put into places, hotels, and they're just distributing them throughout the UK. So yes, that's the main thing happening at the moment. Yeah, other than that, I mean, you always get people coming in through the Eurotunnel in the back of trucks, and I think that's standard. I think illegal immigration is standard when it comes to a first world country, because I don't think it's only the UK that's happening, or only America. Well, I'm assuming that it happens to European countries as well. But my thought is it probably happens more to the UK and America because we speak English. I think obviously this is now speculation, but as a refugee coming from not speaking English, or maybe speaking a little bit of English and then speaking the native language, if you're going to go and find asylum or look for asylum or in a country, I think you try and you speak the language or as much as you can. So I think that's my thought of why they're not stopping in Greece, Italy, Spain, France, all the places they could possibly stop before they got to England, and then crossing the water. It's a massive trek, it's a long journey. It's not like they've just gone for a walk, out for a stroll, and found themselves in England. I think that's my thought. Obviously, I'm not an expert, so I'm just thinking about it.
Well, I think there's it's been happening for a while, and I'm not on that border of the Mediterranean, but there's a lot of people crossing on boats there as well, going into Greece, going into Italy, also on the same type of vessels, and not seaworthy, or not, if it's one storm, you find boats and people around, apparently in the news. Why? Let's just clarify quickly. Why are they coming in the first place? Why are they making the journey? Why do we believe? Are they fearing for their lives? And if so, why? Or are they coming for a better life? What's moving away? I guess a bit away from Brexit, to be honest. But yeah, just why make the journey?
Yeah, well, there's been a few documentaries about this. They've asked the people what they're doing, where they're from. A lot of them are from Syria, a lot of them from Middle East, and it's war-torn countries. It's countries that have seen war. A lot of them want a better life. They haven't got, they want to just try and make a better life. They're struggling there with, I don't know, family and food, and so that's what they're saying. So they actually, a lot of them do take the boats across and then actually do go across all the different countries to get to England because they want to come for a better life. So that's very understandable. I mean, everybody wants a better life. I mean, I initially, when I came over, I was in a place, where, okay, yes, I had an English passport, so that made it a lot easier. But yes, I mean, I needed to change of work, and I wanted a better life. I'm like, well, I was only going to go for a year or two. I wasn't immigrating at the stage. I was just going to go for a year or two, and then go back home. And then it was easy. Well, not easy, but it's easier life in South Africa to get work for myself in the current situation. So I suppose if people thought like this when they were in their countries where they're struggling and there is maybe hard to get work or hard to get food, you think, well, listen, I'm going to take what money I have and go try and find a better place. I'm assuming that's happening in America as well, where they're coming up from South America and from Mexico and those places where it's harder to find work. It's harder, and to be very honest, to look at now. Let's just say let's just put the other hat on and say that I'm English now. I'm English. Let's say I've been here all my life and this is my home, and all these people are streaming in and I see them coming in and I'm like, wait a minute, this is my home, what you coming to do here? I can understand why a lot of them, I suppose, are fearful, don't like it, apprehensive, don't want to open them up, open their arms, welcoming them in. It's difficult, it's difficult because as a Christian, we are taught to love your neighbor. And our neighbor is not necessarily the people other side of the wall. It is meaning neighbor, meaning another person, somebody who's not you. And by loving your neighbor, does that mean letting them, opening arms and welcoming everybody in, or is it? Or do you? From a Christian point of view, now, what do you think?
Yeah, admittedly, it is a struggle. I mean, I know of Germany who has stacks of immigrants coming in, and they've tried to help them in Netherlands and the UK, as you just mentioned, trying to spread them out around. Yeah, I think from a Christian perspective, it's, as you say, loving your neighbor is hard to get past. And your neighbor is literally not the person above you or next to you, then as the Bible would teach, it's about loving the foreigner. The word immigrant isn't actually found in Bible translations, but foreigners or sojourners, it is, and it's the same. It's pretty much a similar direct translation of people who aren't from the area that you're in. And then they've gone across, and so the Bible, one of the easier ones is the Israelites were in Egypt for a very long time, and they were foreigners in that time. And there's a Bible reference that says you were, it's in Leviticus actually. I'll read it out. Leviticus 19, 2 verses I'm reading from the ESV. It says, when a stranger sojourns with you in the land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as a native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you were also strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And so what it's saying was that when strangers come into your midst, whether they legal or illegal, I think they would suggest, wouldn't clarify, it needs to be legal. You should be treating them with love and with care as you would treat another neighbor or a friend. And understand that if you could maybe do that for 10 people or for 100 people or 1,000 people. But the problem is, and even if you're Christian or not Christian, is when it gets to a certain number where it's kind of flooding your area and taking over. I mean, still as Christians, we should we should emulate God. A person called Daniel Carroll wrote a book called Christians at the Border, Immigration, the Church and the Bible, discussing this topic as from a Christian perspective. He was on a quote when he says, God has a deep love for the needy and the disenfranchised, whoever they are and whatever the cause of their situation. And I think I'm not in this situation. I'm not surrounded by a mass of people looking to come in. But somehow I think people, and Christians in particular, should find a way to care and to love and to understand the situation where they're coming from, especially if they're coming from a war-torn country, especially if you are trying to protect your children or the women who maybe are focused more. Then they are hurt and they're broken, and so even in the moments where we can think of many reasons for them not to be here. I don't think we should be turning our backs on people who are hurt or who are broken, and that could be just for the person from down the street as well, and as a neighbor. But these immigrants have experienced things that hopefully some of us will never experience. Lord willing, we'll never be in a space where we see people being shot on the streets and literally fleeing for your life with bullets coming past you and stuff. And so it's not a law thing in the Bible per se, where there was laws. The Israelites had to treat the people who were foreigners or coming to their midst as themselves, and the foreigners, to come back to your point about living in the society, they had to kind of go under the laws of the Israelites, but also they got the protection of the law. But I think it's not necessarily about the laws per se. It's more about a Christian culture, a Christian character of love and grace and caring that we should be having. And I believe that's where a Christian perspective should be at, and you should always work out of that.
Good. Thank you. Some really good points there. Yeah, I mean, you were saying, come under the law of the country that you're going to. You mentioned that. I think that's also a big, difficult spot for. I know people here in the UK. I think it seems to be a lot of people struggle with that. In London, for instance, there's an areas, I believe it's Luton or something. That area, it's very Middle Eastern. They're just all the people that have immigrated from the Middle East. They've come to the same place, and they've, there are some areas and suburbs and almost towns really that is basically is like a Middle East in London, and they've got mosques and they've got their own courts, the Sharia courts, and their own schools, that are Muslim only, and so I think a lot of British people find it difficult, and they feel like, yes, we're happy to love our neighbor if there's 10, 20, 100, maybe 1,000, but when it starts getting that that they're coming into the country and almost setting up their new country inside this country and going their own laws, their own, the halal meat, their own slaughter, everything. I think they find it hard. I think they're finding it, and that's what really starts to get them. I'm using this particular denomination because that's what I know of. There might be other denominations. It might be Asians. It might be Africans. It might be whoever, South Africans. There might be a big group of South Africans somewhere that have taken over. I know particularly in Wimbledon, in London, there's lots of South Africans that actually live in that area, and there are a few South African shops. But to my knowledge, that's it. They haven't they haven't set up their own um, Afrikaans speaking courts, or like this is our own school only for South African schools. And
Mm.
so I think that I think it's important that, yes, let people in, refugees, by all means, let people in. But I think the people that come in need to be almost educated or briefed on the culture, the way of living. And that, okay, you're coming to Britain, you are now British. This is, like for instance, my wife, as you know, she had to do a life in UK test. She had to study, had to learn about the past royalty, about dates of when things happened, X, Y, Z, and she had to write an exam, had to be able to speak English, had to be really to get in, to get her visa to indefinite leave to remain. She had to really jump through a lot of hoops,
Mm.
which and pay a lot of money, which then a lot of people are not doing. Sometimes you'll go to a certain restaurant and speak to them, and they, barely speak English very, very. So I'm like, well, that's not what, my wife actually speak almost
What
100%
do you
English.
what do you feel then, or why do you feel that that should happen? I mean, it happened like in Chicago when I was there. There's like a Chinatown area, and you go there and you can get live fish in a shop, or boba tea easier, and have a whole uh, Chinese or Asian experience in the moment. I'm not sure about the religions in there, but they were like lucky cats and all that type of stuff. Why do you think it is necessary? Why would you think some people would say, this is England and you should be learning our culture? Why can't the English accept that the mosques are going to be praying 3 times a day, or why do you feel like it should be this way around and not caring other way around?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. It's almost like I'm a big fan of history and culture, and I've done my family tree. I love museums. I love, especially the UK. I love going around to the castles and love reading up.
Mm.
Some castles over 1,000 years old, and the kings and queens have lived here. So I'm a big fan of history and culture, and I believe that in order to keep to keep who you are, the identity of who somebody is, whether it's English, New Zealand, whoever it is, Scottish, German, whatever the culture is, um, it takes a lot to keep that going. You need books being written in that culture. You need music. You need things happening. In order to keep the culture rich. I know there's a big thing in South Africa at the moment where, with over the last 30 years of things happening and then change happening, that because so many people have left and so many South Africans have left, and South Africans in general, but also a lot of Afrikaans speaking people, there was a stage where they were worried that Afrikaans would die out because there's just not enough happening, which I wouldn't, I didn't think would happen, because they have the music keeping people, parents are teaching Afrikaans to their children and they're passing it on. But especially in this day and age now, where a lot of things are being, as I say, cancelled, cancelling the history and stuff. I think it's important. I think it's important to maintain who you are, and I'm not saying don't take in outside influences, but I think if if I go to a bakery, I'm not going to go ask for a cut of meat. I am there to get bread, or I'm there to get rolls, and so that's why I've gone to the bakery to get what they offer. And I think that's how, in my opinion, how people should see going to another country. If you're going to go to another country, you are taking what they have and you're accepting what they have on offer. So you shouldn't go to a bakery and expect meat and get upset when there's no meat, and then start getting, bringing more people asking for meat, until the bakery decides he has to now start selling meat as well, because a lot of people are asking for it. I think the bakery needs to stay a bakery. If you go there, expect to get bread and accept that and be happy with it. Otherwise, if you want meat, go to the butchery.
What happens if you go to the butchery and you want meat and you don't have halal meat? So the thing is on that one is that I accept the bakery analogy. I definitely I like that. Like when you go into you fitting into what you expected. You're going there because there's a certain lifestyle, and the reason why perhaps you're traveling all the distance because they are doing well.
Yes.
They've done something in history, getting to the point where this country is running at a good pace, and they have systems in place, politics or whatever. And so I do think there's an element where you should be adapting to something that is working for that country. But then there is elements of other faiths, and we may have to talk about it in a different video. But in terms of halal meat, there's not as many halal people in the UK previously. And so what do? You have to make up your own butcher and put in procedures that you believe is law and lawful for your religion and your understanding of lifestyle. Same as if you're vegan or you're vegetarian, you can't go into a restaurant and there's no options. What do? You make an option. You make a restaurant, or you make a butcher that sells your stuff. And so I don't know where the line is when you go into a country and there's no place of worship for you. Then what do? You don't just all of a sudden jump across and say, okay, I'll be whatever that country's religion is, because then firstly your faith is that strong. But yeah, I understand that it does affect the area around it. It can affect it when there's more and more people doing that. And I embrace the fact that if you're coming into a country, then you should be very aware of their culture and not enforce your culture onto them. But I'm not sure where the line is of we have to be providing or open enough to be welcomed of another culture and allow them to do the law thing. I struggle with, like, having your own laws, and like if you're doing things different to the government, that's a bit tricky for me to swallow, because then that means that the laws that haven't worked or the laws that are working in your country are being, yeah. So I understand that, but I do think we have to figure out the line of what is healthy for us, accept that people are different, and their beliefs are different, and maybe this is why we should be speaking more about these different things, to have an understanding of where are people at and how people are actually feeling they are, rather than just doing a survey of what do you feel like is happening. You can actually have a normal conversation and say, I struggle with prayers at 7 o'clock in the morning, or I struggle with people wearing robes in religion, or having to provide normal meat and having to use different utensils to cut or something like that. And how can you reconcile these two situations?
It's a good thing you're mentioning about talking about it, and I think that's what is happening nowadays. Everything's being shut down. Freedom of speech is being shut down. People are saying, no, you can't say that. Can't say that. You're not allowed to say that. You can't. You're going to get into trouble for saying that. And everybody's being shut down when actually the conversation should be encouraged. So yes, okay, you can't. I don't know. Maybe you can. You should be able to say whatever you like, really. If I say something that hurts your feelings, then it's between me and you. But I don't know. It's difficult because, as you say, people aren't talking about it. And the best place to do it is talk about it, have a conversation about it, I hear your opinion, you hear my views, we discuss it, and we decide, thank you, I learn, I grow, you learn, you grow, and we walk away saying, now I understand this person better. I understand why they do something. I understand the reasons behind what they want, what they do. That makes me understand them better, and makes me less fearful for what might be happening or might not be happening. Um, I think that's you hit the nail on the head. It's about talking about it, isn't it? And that will probably be the answer to a lot of the things we talk about. Hence, we're talking about unspoken things because they should be spoken about. So that will probably be the trophy of every conversation. But it's definitely good to unpack this one. Any final thoughts on this before we say bye?
No, I just would like to invite everyone who has gotten this far in the video or has maybe jumped ahead or whatever the case is, like we would be welcoming their comments on their topic, whether it's politically correct or not. Please be careful of what you're saying because it's a public forum. But yeah, I think what part of this is to get things spoken about a little bit more, to get the unspoken things opened up. And so, yeah, if you have a topic that you want us to discuss, we've got a few things lined up, but we'll be open to that. And if you have an opinion on this topic or any other one in the future, let us know.
Yes, good one. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And thanks for joining. And then we'll chat to you on the next chat. Hopefully it won't be too long. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. See you on the flip side.
Bye.
Bye.
Some things are better left unsaid.